Hello and welcome to the garden. Well, it's a blazing hot day here and I'm just going to pop into the greenhouse in a minute and take a quick look at the cucumbers. I don't want to be there very long, so I thought I'd start the video here. So if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I tend to grow old varieties, regional varieties, mostly open pollinated sorts, very few hybrids. But this season, to save myself a little bit of trouble, I am growing a hybrid cucumber, and it's one I've not tried before, so I thought I'd share my initial thoughts on it. Well, actually, if you've seen the previous greenhouse tour, you will have seen the cucumber plants when they were small, but at that point I hadn't tasted any of the fruit. I've tasted quite a lot of it now, and I'm going to say it's okay. I'm even tempted to grow it again next year. It doesn't have the flavour of some of the old varieties that I really enjoy growing, but the hybrid cucumber does have some advantages. So cucumbers come in two forms. There's the outdoor or ridge type, tend to be smaller fruit, knobbly and so on. Very tasty, I do like them a lot. But they need to be pollinated in order to set fruit. Now the glasshouse cucumbers are of a different sort, and the old-fashioned glasshouse cucumbers, they do produce male flowers and those fruits can be pollinated. However, you don't want them to be. So the glasshouse cucumber will produce fruit without pollination, so-called parthenocarpic fruits. The figs in this greenhouse are exactly the same. There's no fig wasp in this country to pollinate those figs, so those are parthenocarpic. The fruit develops in most cases in response to pollination, but there are some where the fruit can develop without pollination, and glasshouse cucumbers and figs are just two examples of that. So the old-fashioned glasshouse cucumbers, you got to go through and pinch off the male flowers. If not, you get not only a pretty seedy cucumber, but you potentially can get bitter fruit. It's not normally a big problem, but they're much better if you go over them quite carefully and take all of the male flowers off. That, unfortunately, is a bit of a chore, and it's not something I fancy doing this year. I always start out with good intentions, and then I'm a bit rubbish, and I miss it for a few days, and all of a sudden there's male flowers everywhere, and all the fruit are pollinated. So I thought I'd save myself that hassle this season and get an all-female hybrid. So very often they only produce female flowers and you don't have anything to do. Some varieties occasionally can produce a male flower, particularly if they're under stress, but under normal conditions they're basically all female plants, and that is great because I don't have to do anything. I grow old varieties for all sorts of reasons. One of them is flavour. Modern breeding tends to focus on all sorts of criteria that are good for commercial producers, and flavour comes a long way down that list. Productivity, uniformity, disease resistance, admittedly a very handy property, and all sorts of other criteria. Thick-skinned, doesn't bruise easily, whatever it happens to be. All those things that make a farmer's life and a supermarket's life easier. Flavour is a long way down that list, and that's just one of the reasons why I tend not to grow modern hybrids. There are other reasons. I simply find old varieties a bit more interesting because they've got a history or connection to a particular place or region, and I like all of that. But anyway, on to the cucumber. This is Carmen F1. As I said, the flavour isn't quite as good. It's at least as good as any supermarket cucumber, probably quite a bit better, but it falls short of either a ridged type cucumber, even something fairly modern like market more well, I call that modern. I think nowadays that's still thought of as a heritage variety, but something like Marketmore, much more tasty. And even the old classic Telegraph, which is one that we've grown here many times, that's a more tasty cucumber. But let me show you the plants and some of the good points. While I'm here, I'm happy to report that the ginger is finally spreading out. So this has now thrown up 3 stems, and we've got 3 stems here. So this is starting to really get going. I don't know how it's going to perform over the entire season, but it's not looking too bad. But at the end here, we've got 2 cucumber plants, and actually at this stage, we only really need 1, but it's really not safe to just grow 1 plant. So we always have at least a couple of greenhouse cucumbers just for the safety of it. And they've grown all the way up the wall of the greenhouse, and they are now tracking along the roof, and they are producing some mighty fruits. And there they are. And how far has it got? I think it's got about a good 6 feet, maybe 6.5 feet along the roof line now. It's got plenty of room to grow during the season, so that's not a problem. Let me move the camera and show you the productivity of this plant, because it really is very impressive. So here it's running across, and I mean, you can see we've got fruit at every position, sometimes more than 1, but at least 1, and you can see this sort of succession right down to this big fella. And this is a ridiculous fruit. It's huge, but it is rock solid. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just grown to huge size, and it's done this quite a lot actually. You turn around, this just one day ago was this size, and likewise one day ago this one was about this size, and so on. We're just getting a constant stream of cucumbers. I mean, this one is so big, I really have to take that off now. It's very easy. I give it a quick twist and it will come down quite safely, but I mean, it's just a monster. But this is an immensely productive plant running all the way along here. So this one is running along here with just a single stem, and at each node it's got the leaf, and in the leaf axil it might produce fruit, but it will also produce side shoots, and here's a large one. And sometimes I will have more than 1 stem, and I probably could on this. It's vigorous enough, but I certainly don't need it, and it's easier to deal with if I just take all of these side shoots out and just keep that 1 stem. But that will do for now. I want to get out of this baking hot greenhouse. Well, those are absolute monsters. This is a huge cucumber. Now, I know that if this were a Telegraph, I'd say this is a bit too big and it will start to lose quality. Actually, these big old Carmen cucumbers, they are perfectly great at this size. I don't know why everything's growing so big this year. Lots of the peppers are as well. It must be the conditions, but anyway, I mean, you just can't complain at that. Now, I know a lot of gardeners like the smaller cucumbers. They are admittedly quite handy, but we eat a lot of cucumber during the summer, and I still like a good old-fashioned glasshouse cucumber, and there's not a lot to complain about here, really. I think the plants are immensely productive. They are vigorous, they're perfectly healthy, no signs of any problems. In almost every respect then, this hybrid cucumber has done extremely well for us. So I don't think I'm going to complain at all, even though this has a slightly less good flavour than some of the other varieties we've grown here, especially the traditional old varieties. I think they have the edge on the flavour. But anyway, I'm still happy to grow this one, and I'm thinking I might even grow it again next year. But if you do have a recommendation for this sort of cucumber, a big old fella, I would be very pleased to hear it. Again, I'm thinking next year of an all-female hybrid. I have not been converted to the otherwise to the benefits of hybrid seeds, but I think for the cucumber, a bit like sweet corn, that's another one where the hybrids have some advantages. I think 1 or 2 in the garden, they can make a difference, and this one has saved me a bit of bother this year, and I'm very happy with it. Anyway, that is all for this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and bye for now.